What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here at Dean 7904. If you want to get all tech on me, it is 4:30. 4:30 on the East Coast. 4:30 on the East Coast. 1:30 on the West Coast. 3:30 Tennessee time. Of course, I'm just time with the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, it's one Grant Neefer. You may remember him from such things as you just did a show for golf super draft. I happened to catch that happened earlier today. Yourself and Tambo. I imagine you yielded to Tambo. He's more of the expert when it comes to the golf.
Let's be honest. Golf is, we can all just play whoever the projections play. But
in golf, you're supposed to do it in golf too. I don't know. I'm not a golfer.
I know strategy. I know game theory. I know super draft, and I know golf enough to go to a live final. Let's say.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That I got second in out of 4.
Are you proud of yourself for finishing two of 4? Is that good?
I mean, the only live final I finished in the top 50th percentile.
Congratulations.
14. That's second live finals.
You were on the podium. It's the Masters this week. If people are not aware, this is not a promo. I'm just kind of doing it on the fly. But I did see Dan Bach tweet out earlier today. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in the chat for the people over there. What's up, people? Feel free to like, subscribe.
I'm gonna ban you from the chat. Do I have that ability, Devin?
I don't think so. Why would you? Why would you? Why would you want to ban me?
I'm gonna put you in timeout.
In the naughty chair or something like that?
You have been very naughty.
What was that show? The nanny, the nanny.
Nanny 911.
I don't know.
Nanny.
Super Nanny. There it is.
There's a lot of nanny shows back in 2006.
Well, you've actually, it's funny because you were talking about James Belushi, and according to Jim's, that kind of fits into our pre-show conversation. But yeah, you were a nanny. We could talk. So did you get some tips from an actual nanny?
No, I already know more than everything. I'm a fantastic nanny.
Before your time, I think Hulk Hogan was also a nanny too.
Oh, the nanny, yeah. Oh, and I think they kind of redid it with, I want to say, Vin Diesel, the pacifier.
Yes, yeah, and The Rock was also something like. Didn't The Rock do something of the sort? Tooth Fairy. There you go. Wow,
Mr. Nanny was what it was called. 6% on Rotten Tomatoes.
50%
by the critics. 6%. 33% by the audience.
Oh my God, 6%. It's hard to make a movie and get to 6%. I did want to mention though, there is some free content as far as the Masters this week. You got Noto's first look article. I just went ahead and dropped this in chat for the people out there. You guys know Notorious. Tambo.
Did I report you on YouTube?
For what? What did I do wrong?
I don't know.
Why would you report me?
Because you're you.
Grant, whoever had you Grant needling me in the first 12 seconds to cash your tickets.
I think you should do better phrasing.
Well, what was wrong with my phrasing? I feel like I didn't catch it. What just happened?
Needling you?
Yeah. Well, come on, man.
It implies that I'm not on Team Girth.
No. Well, that is not the implication necessarily. Speaking of that, I wonder if Daniel Vogelbach is playing baseball tonight. I've not seen.
You know who makes him look tiny?
Who's that?
Your man Mercedes.
That dude is ripped. Yeah. And is he still a catcher according to DraftKings? This isn't the baseball show. You guys should stick around. The baseball show follows us. Derek Carty, the curator of the bat, and Stevie, from the podcast. Yeah. They're going to be doing the 5:30 show. Of course, if you guys are premium later on today, you got Andy Means. I'm not sure. Is it Cheese who's on later as far as the baseball? Oh, it's Tuttle. All right. It's Tuttle and it's Andy. They're talking baseball and basketball in this crossover. And just the way the seasons are going, we're having 5-6 weeks of crossover. We drew the basketball straw today, Grant. Do you want to get comfortable? Do you want to know who's in and who's out tonight? Because it is a long list. The list keeps getting longer and longer as we get close in on the end of the season. But I wrote them all down. So you can at least do the courtesy of listening to hearing all the guys that are in, all the guys that are out as far as tonight.
Oh, I was showing the people Yellowbird Sriracha. It's better than regular Sriracha, in my opinion.
Oh, well, I mean, I you got to prioritize on the show. What were you showing? Is that a hot
Yellowbird
sauce?
Sriracha. It's made with blue agave and red
Oh.
jalapenos.
What is it? What's the score? You ever watch that Hot Ones? That's a show.
Oh yeah. In terms of heat, probably a 3. In terms of flavor, probably a 7.5, 8.
No, but like there's like a Scoville rating or something like that. Is it the proper word? What's the Scoville rating? Is it actually on the bottle? I have no idea.
I don't think it's hot enough to be need to be on the bottle.
I had to turn it down. I can't. They invited me in the show, obviously, but I had to turn it down because I'm very sensitive to heat. I can't eat hot food, so I can't. I could not partake. I would not last one wing. I don't think. But all right. Nobody cares about that. We're talking about DFS tonight. 7-game slate, weird slate, because I assume it's because of the national championship game. All the games are scheduled at 7:00, with the exception of the one game that's at 8:00, because the national championship game's at 9-ish. Yeah, so I think that's what's going on there as far as the NBA yielding. There's no backloading. That's what I like to do, Grant. And you can backload one game. That's like one of the least appealing games in the slate, as far as who's in, as far as who's out, as far as what we're monitoring. Bradley Beal is questionable with that hip. Rui Hachimura, teammate, is out with a shoulder. And Gafford is out with an ankle. We saw Bertans come back and get little spurts. Maybe he gets some more run. Who knows? Probably don't need him. Robin Lopez got a lot of run last game, but who knows how that fickle that rotation there is in Washington. Toronto, this is a big one. Kyle Lowry is out with his foot. FVV, Freddie VanVleet, he's also questionable with his hip. If both Lowry and VanVleet are out, it's going to be Malachi Flynn season, which that'll be fun. Sure. And if VanVleet plays, he's good. He's a good play. Rodney Hood, McCaw, Watson, all out. James Harden, not on the injury report, so we're presuming he's back with his hamstring. Blake Griffin's old, so he's going to rest. This is a back-to-back. We should mention that too, right? I thought I had these noted this somewhere. I do. Yeah, so the back end of a back-to-back is Houston and Brooklyn, Toronto, and Detroit is in the front end. And this time of year, the front end and the back, I want as many island games as possible. I want to try to avoid these teams if I can. Of course, you can't necessarily do that, and sometimes you're just being paranoid. But it's the likelihood of players getting rested on the front and the back end is certainly heightened at this point. Harden, we're assuming he's playing. Griffin is out. Shamet is out. Tyler Johnson's going to be out for a while. Dallas suspect Porzingis will be back, but he's currently questionable with his wrist, as is Josh Richardson with his calf. Minnesota, Ricky Rubio, Beasley, Noel, Russell, all officially doubtful. I don't expect any to play. Stay tuned on that. OKC, the Thunder, down to 8 live bodies. That's SGA out. Baisley's got a shoulder, so he can't play. 3 guys have a head. Lou Dort, Roby, and Hall. They all have heads, and they all can't play. Justin Jackson was waived. They did sign Justin Robinson. I assume he's not available tonight. Currently, what we're looking at is 8 players playing basketball for the Thunder this evening. That includes Miller, who can only go so many minutes, it seems, maybe 25. Cleveland, Jaron Allen's got a head, so he can't play, and Larry Nance had the fish, not feeling particularly well. He is out. He's ill. John Wall's out with a knee. Daniel House has an ankle, so he can't play. Grant, you enjoying yourself? Are you good? Because this is all
boring.
Important stuff. What?
This is boring.
Well, this is really important as far as how we're going to select players. Have you heard that?
Yes, it's important, but it's not important to read things. It's important to know certain definitions of words, but we're not going to sit here and read definitions of words. We assume most people know them.
I don't assume most people know that, Wayne Ellington's not playing basketball tonight. So I'm going to tell them, Wayne Ellington, he's got to rest. Mason Plumlee's got to rest too. Rodney Magruder's got an elbow, so he can't play. That's basically it. Hassan Whiteside's doubtful with his knee. I guess we can note that. Well, we did. So we already committed to that. And Phoenix, who plays
you know what perfunctory means?
What is it?
Perfunctory.
Can I call a lifeline? Can I ask Devin?
Of an action or gesture carried out with minimum of effort or reflection. He gave a perfunctory nod. See, that's also worthless information.
Well, what can I do with that word, and how do I apply that to the slate tonight?
Pretty much half the teams are giving a perfunctory effort into making lineups.
And I didn't say use it in the sentence. Do I have to spell it now? Well, what's the country of origin?
I don't know. I don't care.
Well, you're not being helpful at all. Yeah. So how will you hit on this slate, Grant? Because again, all the games start at 7 with the exception of 1. The late game is Phoenix. Phoenix is a team I don't really like to mess with when everybody's healthy. Everybody's healthy. So who cares? Houston will be thin, but the prices have been bumped up. There is no wall. Porter, the price is basically sort of adjusted to where it should adjust. But again, we're looking at what I think 10 players as far as Houston tonight. How are we attacking this slate?
I mean, playing the chalk mostly. Finding little random ways to get a little bit of variation in different lineups. I mean, personally, in terms of GPPs, I feel like there's not too many guys I really want to play. I think Fox makes a little bit of an interesting play at 9.2K, considering that he's been in a bit of a slump lately and been some lopsided games, plus gets the highest team total on the board, going up against one of the fastest paced, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I plan on playing a decent amount of Sacramento guys, higher than what most other people are. I mean, currently we don't have anyone on Sacramento projected for over 15%, and that's Buddy Hyde, which I always hate playing still. But I think that you can go with a few different guys. Like Holmes definitely has some upside. He's probably going to be needed for a few more minutes going up against Towns, especially if Whiteside doesn't end up playing. And like it's with when they're at this point in the season, there are so many guys that are pretty much not a full on lock, but pretty close to a lock to at least hit value. And we're not expecting a ton of huge outliers that are going to be drastically under owned at the cheap end. I mean, we have Stewart, McLaughlin, Prince, Poku, even Bradley to an extent, all projected for over 25% ownership, at least over on DK. Chances of 3 of them not hitting is very unlikely. And the chances of another guy under 5K to hit over 6.5x is not the most likely thing in the world, especially not likely to be at decent enough ownership where it's going to kill you. So eating the chalk on a lot of these cheap guys that are going to end up playing a lot of minutes. I mean, Stewart is pretty much a requirement. Detroit has 0 guys over 6'8", but Stewart happens to have a 7'3" wingspan, so he's probably the best shot at shutting down Moses Brown to an extent. McLaughlin, in any game that stays close, he's going to end up playing 35 plus minutes in all likelihood, would be my guess. And he's still drastically too cheap at 4.4K. So my plan is to kind of bring it back when I play McLaughlin and Cat with Fox or Holmes on the other side, just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting and kind of get a nice little correlation there. But I mean, the slate, there's not a ton of ways to really attack it in a different way outside of playing like, I don't know. I mean, if Beal ends up playing, then Westbrook is going to drop down a little bit in ownership and can still end up crushing. I mean, you can play Luka. It's not going to come in terrible ownership. Cat is the chalk. So by fading him and McLaughlin in the same lineup and not really running it back with any Sacramento players, that's where it becomes viable to play guys like Randall, Harden, Westbrook, even though Harden's not the greatest matchup. Beal might end up playing, and Luka is just in a tough spot going up against Utah and a pretty drastic dog, but there's no guarantee that the game's going to end up blowing out. They're only a 6-point or 5-point now favorite. So there are little ways to differentiate where you're pretty much cutting your ownership in half, but overall the slate is pretty plain simple. Like you play a lot of the cheap guys and do a bit stars and scrubsy.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of sort of forcing the star scrubs. I know some people like to go like just mix here, but the scrubs are really good. Like they're really good math plays. They all can't fail in theory, right? You mentioned McLaughlin, we're projecting for 30 minutes or so. He's still just way too cheap on DK's 4.4K. Speaking of projections, we're going to have SBK join us in a couple of minutes from the projection team here at Rotogrinders. If you guys want to get access to that yourself, along with the optimizer, along with my rankings, along with Grant's rankings, along with Andy Means' article. There's so much good, the DVA rankings, you get crunch time, you can get all the sports, just one sport, you get $10 off the first month. We're going to go ahead and drop that link in chat. Speaking of chat, ask some questions. Devin, our producer, is going to be joining us back 15 minutes of the show, or give or take. And we should also mention after us, baseball's following us as well. I know people are juggling baseball and basketball. We went basketball today early, and hopefully none of this information, it's all good stuff. And basketball, it never expires, Grant, because they're never like it's news that drops out of nowhere at 6:30. That doesn't happen. Hopefully not, or hopefully, because maybe that's a way to get an edge, people that aren't paying attention. But again, Derek Hardy, Stevie, TPFL will be following us for baseball. We're digging into basketball in a second. And again, SBK from the projections team, he's going to go ahead and talk to us about a couple game situations that I think that are worth digging into a little bit more as far as our projections. And hey, I mentioned before, $10 off your first month for one sport. You can get all sports as well. $10 off for that package, with the exception of NASCAR. There you go. You guys can ask Stevie NASCAR questions later on in the show. I'm sure he'll thoroughly enjoy that. You mentioned Cat, Carlton Towns. Seems like a phenomenal play. And, depending on where you're shopping, Stewart, you mentioned as well too. FanDuel makes it easier for you. They threw Stewart in a power forward. And you talked about him being 6'8" and have his monster wingspan. And of course, he's one of their, as assets go, he's one of the best assets Detroit has. There's no reason not to develop him. There's no Plumlee tonight. How do you not play Stewart? Is there a scenario where he fails this evening? I guess there is, like goofy foul trouble or something like that.
Ridiculous block, goofy foul trouble. But more than likely, they're going to need him to be in there to just be, because they don't have a lot of talk. I mean, they can go small, but even going small is really just if they move Grant or Booyah or anyone down to the 5, or even throw what's his name in, the second string guy. Why am I forgetting him? Tell me. Cook. Yeah, like realistically, there is ways they ends up failing. Obviously, can get into foul trouble. Going up against Moses Brown. Moses Brown can get handsy, but people can get handsy going up against him because he's likely to have the ball in his hand and doing a decent amount of rebounding. So there is a few ways where he can end up failing. But I mean, realistically, if you're not playing him, then you're probably playing like Poku, or you're doing the way around is really to play double centers, or hope that Hartenstein ends up playing a decent amount more minutes. But yeah, like that's how you're doing it. If you're fading him, then you're hoping that he just puts up a moderate game of like 22 points and 2 other centers really crush the values. I mean, you can go Karl Anthony Towns and Gobert and play some other different kind of chalkier, or not chalkier, kind of less chalky plays. You can go with a guy like, let's see, I'm looking Christian Wood, who can go off, and Keach is here.
All right, SBK. I'm sure you're having a fabulous time these days projecting the minutes for these rotations that are all sort of all funky and all over the place. How are things for this Monday? We're going to dig into the slate in just a second. I do want to say hello, though. It feels like it's been a while.
Yeah, a whole weekend. It feels like it's been a month, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, then there'll be NBA overlap periods always it's just a mess. I mean, I'm trying to survive. We got till May 22nd, I think, is when the NBA regular season ends.
Not that anybody's counting, but yeah, about 6 weeks. It's a big period this year, just the way the schedule's been working out.
Yeah, Dean, I got a calendar on my wall counting down the days. I mark them off every day. Somebody's counting.
What is it? You don't really have a calendar on your wall, do you? In the year 2021, there's no way you have a calendar on the wall.
No. I have a calendar. I have a calendar in my head, though.
Or on your watch or on your phone. All right. So where do you want to start? Because there's multitude of places to kind of talk about as far as the slate. He's kind of ran down the body parts as far as who's in, as far as who's out, as far as what we're monitoring. I think Minnesota is probably one of the more interesting spots to talk about. We're assuming Rubio, Beasley, Noel, and Russell are all going to be out. If that is the case, how appealing is Minnesota as a whole, and who's really popping for you?
I do think Jordan McLaughlin would become obviously very interesting. It doesn't seem like we'll see Beasley or Rubio, both doubtful. McLaughlin played almost 42 minutes in that Philly game over the weekend, about 40 fantasy points. So, I have a pretty hard time believing that he wouldn't hit value. He's able to get even somewhat similar level of run. Anthony Edwards, another guy to pick up some value, but he's kind of priced at a level where, he's not like incredibly appealing, but still without kind of some main playmakers there. And ball dominant guys, he's definitely on the radar. Same with Karl Anthony Towns. Jaden McDaniels, another guy who's playing a ton of minutes, showing like some level of upside, although obviously kind of the floor is still pretty low as well. But yeah, I mean, if he's, we haven't projected for 35 minutes, I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, he's give you maybe 28, 30 fantasy points, something like that, 5.1K on FanDuel. Yeah, so I think there's a kind of a lot of appealing bodies on this Minnesota side tonight.
OKC, we're down to 8. So you pretty much kind of sort of know where the minutes will be delegated. I am curious to get your thoughts as far as the Brown versus Bradley deal. Like, is it because of Brown foul trouble? Is that why Bradley ate away last time as far as his minutes? And then Darius Miller, we haven't projected for. He's kind of the 8th body. He's like somebody they don't push too hard. We saw earlier in the year. Even when they were down to 8, they didn't want to push him too hard coming back from major injury. He is still minimum on DK at 3K. I'm seeing a 26-minute projection, and I feel like he hasn't really come close to that all season. Am I wrong to say that? I feel like he hasn't hit like more than 21 all year.
Yeah, I think 20. I don't even know if he's gotten to 21.
It was 20.
So yeah, I mean, it's just a complete lack of bodies there, really. I mean, obviously, they kind of have the 2 centers, and then there's just not, they have a couple bigs, and then kind of they have 6 pretty much other guys who are going to have to fill that time. So Miller just, out of sheer necessity is projected where he is right now. Not somebody I'd want to play for DFS purposes. So even if he's like kind of forcing his way into optimals or whatever, because of how cheap he is and the minutes, could go ahead and X him out. I don't think I don't really think he has any semblance of a ceiling, or anybody you could feel remotely good about targeting. As far as the center situation, Brown's minutes have been down the last 2 games. It's kind of been more or less a split with Tony Bradley. I assume that's not going to continue. I don't really know why they'd want to see what they have in Tony Bradley when they seem to want to see what they have in Moses Brown. So I think he's, given that he's played 23 minutes in the last couple, I think 27 is kind of like a decent kind of middle ground, sort of, where not where we would have him projected had those last 2 games not happened, but it's also not quite as low as he's been. So I think, he's the center to target, I think, if you're looking at the OKC side. And I would expect the minutes to trend more towards him than they have the last 2.
If FEV is not played tonight, if Freddie VanVleet does not go, we know there's no Lowry as well already. How fast do I hit the Malachi Flynn lock button? Is that something I'm just supposed to do?
Lock button would be a little tricky. Let me see if we have so we do have an if then up for this situation. Flynn would be projected for 32 minutes and about 22.5 DK points, a little bit above that. So not a guy who'd you'd be jamming him in left and right, but somebody that certainly would step onto the radar and would be an appealing value play. Other than that, Siakam, Anunoby gets a pretty sizable bump. Gary Trent Jr. would take on more. So I think those guys are kind of the 3 playable options at this point that would be appealing. And then obviously if no FEV, then Malachi Flynn would also step onto the radar and would have some value appeal.
Anything else you guys are debating in the, amongst the, the projection team? You guys have kind of gone back and forth on, and obviously you got to put a projection out there somewhere. Is there anything that's been a point of contention as far as the slate tonight?
Not really. Honestly, that OKC situation, even somebody like Darius Miller, it's not somebody we're super excited to have kind of anywhere near optimals or anything like that. But that situation is obviously tough, just given the lack of bodies there. So there's a chance we still move some stuff around, especially on the OKC side, as we get closer to lock. But yeah, other than that, the only other real notable ones, I guess, at this point are Beal, still questionable. And I think I just lost. Oh, yeah, there we go. So Josh Richardson as well, Kristaps Porzingis. So still some questionable kind of guys on that Dallas side. But, other than that, really not a whole lot else. Harden obviously returning is another big thing, but it looks like he's going to play. So not really waiting on too much there.
Grant, you got anything for SBK?
No, I think you covered everything.
We appreciate your time. Hopefully it's going to get chaotic because there's a bunch of games at 7:00.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's going to be a fun scramble. Buckle up for sure. Do appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night. Just want to remind the chat, feel free to fire up some questions. Myself and Grant, we're here for you guys. We'll answer your questions regarding the slate. Grant will answer questions regarding Super Draft. We'll talk about tournaments. Tell us where you're playing. FanDuel, DraftKings, Cash, Tournament, all that good stuff. We're happy to have that conversation. Devin, our producer, will be joining the show momentarily. 10 minutes or so, give or take, depending on how good or bad our conversation's going here. As far as the rest of the slate, Grant, your big spend ups today, and I think there are some kind of if-thens. Westbrook is fine no matter what, but of course becomes a better play if Beal doesn't play. FVV is a phenomenal play if he plays. If he doesn't play, he's a bad play. I think that's how that works. As far as your spend ups,
gosh, you're smart.
But it's contrarian. So the big spends tonight, Westbrook, we're presuming Harden's back. He was not on the injury report. Luka, not the great matchup here against Utah, but for sure he can do it. He can do it against anybody. Cat against Sacramento with everybody out, and a nice matchup against Sacramento feels like phenomenal. That game is high and tight as far as the total, as far as the line. Goofiness has certainly happened. Did we not see a team get doubled up the other night or close to getting doubled up? Toronto, OKC. Toronto absolutely walloped them.
Was it okay? I thought it was Golden State.
It might have been Golden State. Yeah, you might be right. There were several games where it was like 109-59 at one point, which was
99-49, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that wasn't the final score, but whatever. It was close enough near the end, or maybe late third quarter or something like that.
8 minutes or 4 minutes into the third quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Big Spence, who are you spending up on tonight? Who are you prioritizing? And it's again, Westbrook, I think becomes a really good play if Beal is out. He's still a fine play against a Toronto team that has been defense averse of late. Yeah. We have all the money. We might as well spend it. Who are we spending on?
Yeah, I mean, I think just if we're looking at just in a vacuum, as you would say, it's going to be Westbrook if Beal is out. It's going to be Cat regardless. Those are obviously the top two spends. Up Harden, yeah, he's been great, but it's a match versus New York. Obviously, they're very, very slow paced team, which is a bit of a bump down for him. Although it's always in play in tournaments, but not really someone that we want to target just based on everything coming back from the injury, the matchup, everything. D'Angelo Russell will play Monday.
Whoa, really?
Well,
okay. Do we have an update for the rest of the guys?
Get Keach back.
We're not playing. What is it? I wonder what his price is. I can't imagine they just throw him out.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's going to do real well for my best ball teams, but those are all trash.
Are you that guy? You're the guy who has to always go circle back to your best ball team. Somebody cares.
No, I did the mid-season one because there was 50% overlay, and I didn't care enough to put too much effort into it. It was literally the last day of the All-Star break, and I was playing video games while I was drafting lineups, and I ended up with so much Kevin Durant. And
that's how you got D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah. So I mean, I was fine. I was higher on him. My plan was to win it, but I didn't know how much overlay there would be and how many wildcard teams. So I don't know how many mine are going to end up going in there, and so it might just be drawing dead unless Russell has a big week this week.
So how much does that muck up McLaughlin? That seems like that could be a problem. And also we had, Edwards was going to run some point too, as best he could. That's interesting. I
still think Edwards ends up playing a boatload of minutes. I don't think it really affects Edwards a drastic amount.
No.
Obviously it hurts his usage a little bit, hurts Cat's usage a little bit. It kind of hurts everyone, but it definitely has a big hit to McLaughlin.
I would think so. Unless, we get a note from the coach that says Russell's going to play 15 minutes or something like that, or 20 minutes.
He's young. I mean, they probably wouldn't play him if he wasn't ready to play at least 20 minutes, which is more than enough to really muck up things for McLaughlin.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. We'll see we'll give the projection team some time and see if they're kind of all over that, but we still have cheap stuff. I just ran my, I know you like when I do this, I ran 139 DK optimals. Capping it at 71%, no more than 71% as far as players. And I thought Darius Miller landing in it is just kind of surprising to me. Taurean Prince is landing in a good bit of it. They're there for Cleveland. They obviously have several guys out tonight. No Allen and no what's his name, Nance. So he's not a player I like the roster. He's not a great fantasy point minute player, but he might see 28, 30 minutes or something like that. But I don't feel good about that per se. I think you want to mention his name in passing, but Randall, is he going to be kind of sort of somewhat neglected, especially if Beal doesn't play and people spend up on Westbrook? And we talked about how much we like Towns. Towns takes a really slight hit here with Russell, but I think he's still a really good play tonight. And Fox, he has a run back in that Minnesota game. You talked about him as well too. I think Holmes is playable too, and even Healed. He's got a cheap enough price. I'm perfectly fine with him. We haven't talked about Pascal much. FEV. If FEV's not out and Lowry's out, Pascal can run some point too. He can handle the ball for a big man pretty well. And have you mentioned they're facing Washington? I know the price is full. We've got 8.7 on FanDuel, and on DK I think it's like 8.5. But again, we have the cheap stuff in theory to make stuff work. OKC still reasonably cheap. We talked about Poku being pretty cheap tonight. Ty Jerome's another guy, another cheap piece to kind of make stuff work. If there's no FVV, even if there is, OG Anunoby is still like a solid play. He's been phenomenal the last month or so, averaging well over a fantasy point. Been a good stocks guy as well too. There might be some sticker shock looking at 7K, but he can play 36, 37, 38 minutes and certainly get there. What else is here that we've not yet focused on as far as is there a game stack that you like? Is there any games you're just crossing out saying I just don't want any of that? Because the one game that's late, Phoenix, everybody's healthy. They're facing Houston, that most of the Houston guys have a pretty fair market price on them. You can argue for Porter if you want to. Olynyk has certainly been shining since he's been there, but there's no guarantee those 30 minutes are going to be there necessarily. Wood is great ceiling, but it's kind of up and down for him. Do we take advantage of that late game? How do we take advantage of it? What do we do with it?
I mean, what advantage are we getting?
I don't know. Well, it's late. That's the advantage.
No, it's an hour later. It's not a 10 o'clock game. It's a
yeah.
standalone game. It's not that long after. Like, are we really expecting a ton of news? I mean, we already, like, you have to look at things in a nutshell, potential things that could happen. I mean, Chris Paul, Booker, Ayton, probably not going to get X'd out or ruled out within an hour of when the game starts.
It's an island game, so you wouldn't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the chances of that are very minuscule, and that's what would end up changing things. I mean, outside of maybe, I don't know, any like Avery Bradley or Brown or Tate or Porter for some reason getting scratched, which we know Houston can be a little bit of a-holes, we'll just say.
Yeah, we've seen that, but they've already ruled Wall out. They traded Oladipo. Like, who's left? I think they only have 10 guys, as far as I can tell. Olynyk starting alongside Wood is the presumption with Brown and Tate. Daniel House, I think, has already been ruled out as well, too. Yeah, he was part of the body parts. Avery Bradley is not somebody you have to get any run to, veteran guy. DJ Augustine ditto. Even if they're getting blown out, like, you wouldn't think those guys would get a ton of run. They would focus on, the DJ Wilsons and the KJ Martins of the world. Those kind of guys, man, if they get blown out, I don't know who they're. Maybe Porter mops up either way if they get blown out, because why not? That's just sort of the way I'm looking at that. Yeah, and the Phoenix side, everybody's healthy. Everybody's kind of sort of the Paul price is pretty good on FanDuel. I kind of like the FanDuel price for Chris Paul. Don't really like him so much on DK. I think he's 7.4 or 7.6, which is fine. Shouldn't hurt you, shouldn't crush you. It's so weird. He seems to have 2 points going into the halftime all the time, then 12 assists. He has the strangest line sometimes. San Antonio, we've mentioned nobody in the Spurs. Do we care about the Spurs tonight?
Not really.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really care too much.
It's priced up.
Yeah, I don't really care too much about that game. I mean, there's decent plays, but I mean, I'm not really planning on stacking that game up at all. If we just look at RG projections, do you know who has a positive RG value?
On the San Antonio side?
No, on the entire Cleveland game. There's one person.
I'm going to say the one person is Taurean Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3.8K.
And are you excited about playing Taurean Prince? No.
No, but I mean, I'm excited about playing any cheap guy now that McLaughlin's out. Outside of Stewart, no, I'm not excited because they all have corresponding ownerships.
Yeah, and again, if FEV doesn't play, I'm gonna love playing Malachi Flynn. Kevin Love may get a few more extra minutes, not something you can bank on. I want to say his FanDuel price, he's 4.6 over there. Interesting, kind of, sort of, somewhat, but they're not going to push him too hard, I don't think. But in theory, he's a guy that can get there in 25 minutes. What else is kind of sort of somewhat interesting as far as this slate? So, we got Steve Michaela. Is this a first blood revenge game? Also, same deal on the other side. Hamidou Diallo. Yeah. Detroit is just so weird with their rotations. They've ruled guys out and they still have 12 dudes. But maybe they give Diallo a few extra minutes against his old team. I think we're only projecting him 26 or so. And that's the deal with Detroit. Everybody gets 26 minutes, which is annoying. With the exception of Jeremy Grant. We saw Hayes come back and wasn't spectacular. He probably plays about 20 minutes or so again. Yeah, a little revenge there if that does something for you as far as Steve Michaela and Hamidou. I wouldn't be shocked if they gave Hamidou a few extra minutes just because, why not? Playing against his old team. Do you have to get DSJ and Frank Jackson some run? I guess they feel like they do, but there's no.
They just want to play everyone.
Yeah, which it's Blender's coaching that team or something. Terrible. That's a terrible idea.
I would not think of Blender as a great NBA basketball coach.
You specified sport. You think he'd be a good baseball manager?
I mean, I feel like half of DFS players could probably manage a baseball team good enough.
Well, the American League is so easy. There's no decisions in the American League.
You can make a decision to swap in a lefty based on who's pitching at any given point or pinch runners like that. That's pretty much it. A half hour of research and I could probably be prepared, but
we're so arrogant. We think we can just.
It's not even arrogance. It's more just thinking very little of managing baseball with the amount of information's out there, which I could be wrong. I mean, I couldn't coach baseball players, but
it's so completely ridiculous that they have to wear the uniform, right? Why are we doing that? Well, why is Tony La Russa wearing the uniform? What's the point?
Not as ridiculous as Castellanos getting suspended for 2 games.
Oh, I was so angry about that too. Like he got hit he got hit and he got kneed in the back or elbowed in the back, and all he did was flex a little bit. What's the problem with that?
I'm fairly certain I could do a better job as commissioner.
Oh, we could be better umpires. We can say that. Can we at least say that?
I mean,
some of the umpires out there.
I mean, I can think of 2, but yeah.
Joe West
and Cabrera.
Angel Hernandez. Who else?
Or no, not Angel Cabrera. Angel Hernandez. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some really brutal ones.
And how Cabrera, that's that golfer.
It's a golfer who I think is actually in jail currently. I think he's eligible. I think he's eligible to play in the Masters. I saw a note on Twitter. He's eligible. I don't know anything about golf, so take it for what it's worth. But he's anybody who won the Masters can come back and play the Masters automatically. But I think he's currently in like a Brazilian jail. I think that's what I read.
I think he was extradited to Argentina.
Okay, somewhere in South America. But and I'm guessing I don't know if he's playing. Maybe cross him off the list. And stay tuned for STL Cards and Noto and Tambo and those guys.
Or watch my show with Tambo.
Yeah, I gave it a plug earlier. How many plugs do you want?
I was going to make a joke that was in poor taste. I decided not.
I'm hitting refresh on our projections. Of course, we're still 2 hours out as far as lock for basically every single game. I'm curious what we're doing with Minnesota as far as our projections. Do we just assume Russell jumps in the starting lineup? I assume so.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain he will, but I mean, who knows? It's not like they're playing for anything. I don't think the chances of the Wolves making the playoffs is that great.
Hey, is Devin around? Does Devin want to join the show?
Devin, I miss you.
I miss you guys too.
Lies. You missed one of us.
I was enjoying myself. My cat jumped in my lap, so I've been Dr. Eviling myself over here behind the scenes.
What is your cat's name?
Penny.
Is that like a Penny Lane? What's the big Penny Hardaway
reference?
fan?
You guys won't see, but Penny is for the viewers here. She's sweet. Yeah, we got some questions here. We'll try to not give a perfunctory effort on it.
I already forgot that definition. What does that mean? Like useless?
I mean, it's kind of
little effort given.
It's a callback to those that watched the show in the beginning. That's the reward you get.
Those 40 callbacks, like 40 viewers we had at the beginning. People want baseball right now, Dean.
I want baseball.
I'll be honest. I'm playing both slates. I'm playing basketball. I'm playing baseball. I'm much more excited to play baseball tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at the tail end, right? You're always ready for. Well, I mean, you're always ready for the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Baseball is just always my favorite. Like, I love baseball.
So basketball is my favorite, but it's not my favorite right now.
Yeah. It was fun while it lasted, but now baseball's here and it's shiny.
It is shiny, and I want to play Austin Meadows tonight.
You know what's the nice part about last year with the 60-game season? There was never a point where I was just done with baseball. It's like I'm excited all the way through because it's not lasting 7 months.
Yeah. Devin, splice this audio and play this audio back to us like month 6, like week 3, like game 157. And we're going to be like, oh my God, there's another stupid baseball slate.
Yeah. No,
it does beat digging ditches. We really shouldn't complain, obviously.
It's just going to be, a month or 2 from now. We're going to be talking about how much we're ready for football. So.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always ready for football.
What's up, Shawnee and Tony in chat and Yappy from Discord as well. Smash that thumbs up button.
Baseball questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, we'll touch on anything. We've got a few NBA ones, so we'll cut through these real quick and we'll get some basketball or some baseball. Stan wants to know, and this question I think maybe is a little misguided. Is there an optimal minimum salary? Was the question. I don't know if that's necessarily something you can take across slates, right? So
the general optimal minimum salary is within 500 of the max salary. That's general. Yes, it changes from slate to slate. Obviously, there's certain slates where you literally cannot play the full salary. I mean, not as much so in basketball, not as much so on 8-game slate, but there are certain times where the optimal is 100%, not even close to 100% of salary, because it's either not possible or the most expensive guy is not a good play and you have to do things on this slate and in slates in general. Anytime you have a slate where you have multiple very good guys above 10K, such as Westbrook, Harden, Luka, Towns, and even guys close to 10K, they're fantastic plays. Fox, Randall, you generally want to use close to the full amount of your salary, within 1,000, I would say, in almost all scenarios. There's a game theory aspect to not using the full amount of salary because everyone does. So in a way where a slate is very chalky, you can easily differentiate yourself on a smaller slate where everyone is using the full amount of salary, and you're kind of drawn to certain guys because there's a absolute chalk to optimal plays like there is on this slate. Like if this were a smaller slate, Stewart would probably be in 95% of lineups just because he's the de facto chalk cheap guy, with McLaughlin now probably playing less minutes than Russell. But on a slate over 4 games or over 3 games, generally the optimal strategy is to play the full amount of salary, and if need be, swap a top guy or a low price guy over for someone significantly less chalky, because basketball is so consistent in how guys do every day, unlike baseball where Mike Trout can be outscored by a guy that gets one at bat and is one of the worst batters in the league, or even a guy that just pinch runs once every 10 games can get a run and outscore
Billy Hamilton.
Can outscore Trout by 2 points.
And we made it back to baseball.
How amazing was Ohtani last night, by the way? That was fun, right? Yes?
Yeah,
Anybody care?
We were talking about it pre-season last year. Like, Ohtani could be an MVP pretty much any year just because he is, if he stays healthy, the most valuable player in the league.
He's a gem. While we were talking about, there was a player we were talking about, Stewart, that's who it was. Somebody was asking if Grant, this seems like something, if anybody, maybe you would know about Fan Team. Do you ever play on that site?
Fan Team?
I'll admit,
dark side of
I've played some DFS. I have not heard of Fan Team.
I don't know what that is either.
I don't think I'm going to look at it right now.
But the question for Fan Team was Moses Brown or Stewart. So if you had to choose between the two.
I think Moses Brown. This is not U.S. site, I don't think.
I'm seeing Euros, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly.
I mean, it's got a significant amount of like lesser known sports like cricket, CSGO, League of Legends, Dota, horse racing.
Cricket DFS, very popular in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's like 4 days to cash. The game is so long. I gotta spend my money on them.
Figured we'd help out if we had some off-site users. Yappy from Discord wants to know, DK tournament, are you playing more of the blowout side of the Phoenix-Houston game? Sounds like you guys weren't interested in any of the studs there.
I wasn't really interested in that game much at all.
I'm not either. I want to be, like, just in theory, but like I don't know. Like, what's exciting? Phoenix is fully healthy, probably not going to have to use much energy. It's Houston. It's hard to see a ceiling.
It's a 14-point spread, so like Phoenix, the main studs probably not going to do too much. Yes, you can play the blowout angle for Houston, but realistically, good luck figuring out exactly who's going to play what in a blowout. I mean, it could be any number of different things because Houston's a bunch of a-holes.
Well, there's 10 players. Like, who are the 5 players that play in the blowout? I would argue that Porter probably is one of the 5. It's probably not Avery Bradley. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I wouldn't expect Avery Bradley. I probably wouldn't expect Christian Wood. Everyone else, maybe not Olynyk. So I guess after that, you got 7 players, and it's not like any one of them are going to drastically crush their value in a blowout. And it's not something you can fully rely on because you don't know at what point in the blowout are they actually going to come in. So it could be a difference of 8 to 10 minutes, or it could be a difference of 2 minutes.
Yeah. Go ahead there, Devin.
All right, moving on to Unicorn's question. Will Boucher get some good minutes tonight? We currently have 22 projected, and most of the guards
I meant to ask SBK about that, because are we assuming he's starting again? Because if he's starting again, why would his projection just be 22 minutes? I meant that was in my head to ask him that.
I'm sure after D'Angelo news, that's the last thing on his mind.
Yeah, but like if he starts, you project him for more than 22 minutes, and he did start last game. Baines is started most of the season. I don't know. He's like a length guy, and I presume he'll start against Len, who's a length guy as well, and kind of stretch 5s.
I feel like Len played for Toronto.
He did, yes.
I feel like Len played for like 15 teams.
He played sparingly for Toronto. We saw Lopez get a bunch of minutes last game, and like I'm not here to predict that. And it's like and also Lopez isn't like 3K anymore. He's 4.6, and he's also not a great DFS player. But yeah, Boucher, he closed the other night when they were up by 50. It's just wild. That's because of how thin they were, but it's just weird seeing Boucher close the game up 50 points. Yeah. I think he's really interesting for tournaments.
Yeah.
And I want to see him start. Even if he comes off the bench, he's still interesting, but less appealing.
Luckily, not that late game, so should get some news on that, right?
Yeah.
Let's go. Jay Mammon was wanting to know. I think they might have misheard us saying McLaughlin they are not out. It was the D'Angelo Russell news that kind of threw McLaughlin potentially out of the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, McLaughlin's still in, but we assume he's going to lose a fair bit of minutes. And actually, let me do this, Devin, if you don't mind, real quick. I'm pulling up the projection on Minnesota. I believe we updated this. Well, did we? No, wait. No, we didn't. It says updated. I maybe have to hit a refresh. It's coming in.
It's updated. That doesn't mean they've updated everything.
Yeah, it's coming. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. It's on the way.
I was gonna break some news.
Here, I got it up. D'Angelo Russell's at 25 minutes. Jordan McLaughlin's at 23. So
yeah,
good bit of a hit.
Which is that's a significant hit.
It's a 20.37 projection on DK. Clearly,
that's a good guess. I think it's a reasonable number for Russell. 25, like right in the middle.
I've got to imagine we'll see that ownership drop down to just obviously technical note.
Yeah.
And that's all the questions we have for baseball. So
wait, basketball or baseball?
Sorry, basketball. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Big Hurt wants to know FanDuel tournament favorite game stack, and we'll see if the next question comes in favorite position to spend on.
And you think Big Hurt would ask a baseball question, seeing that's Frank Thomas's nickname?
Yeah, favorite game to stack. I mean, if Van Vliet and Beal are out, it's Toronto. That's kind of it. It was Minnesota. It was 100% Minnesota, Sacramento. But now with Russell coming back, I'm not sure it is. Like, it definitely is a downtick for everyone and a huge downtick for McLaughlin.
I still like Cat and Fox, and I think you can play Holmes as well too. That's more of a DK thing with playing Holmes and Cat together, but yeah, I want to see the McLaughlin. I don't want to overreact to the McLaughlin, but I think he's basically done.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
Good hour and a half before slate lock, making definitive NBA statements.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like we might get some information as far as coaches.
Maybe they say Russell will be limited around 12 minutes.
I was going to say, thank goodness that news came out when it did and didn't wait until 5:30 Eastern.
Van Vliet's ruled out.
Oh, it's Malachi Flynn season. If you listen really closely, you can hear his ownership actually going up in real time. He's Malachi Flynn. That's the play. That's how you got to play tonight. Replace your McLaughlin with Malachi Flynn. Now you got an extra some money to left over and have a good time.
And there's the Van Vliet news. Yep. Gopher wants to know FanDuel best value play a small forward.
What do you have for him, Grant? I'm actually on my DK page. So Stahl.
Yeah, I too am on my DK page.
So I think it's Kenrich Williams. This is FanDuel. Is that what I heard?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think it's Kenrich Williams.
I think it's OG.
Well, he's not a value play, but he's 7K, but he's probably better than a 7K player, especially with FEV being out. We talked about him earlier.
It's either Kenrich or Sadiq Bey.
Bey is I just don't trust Detroit's rotations. And Miller,
I don't either, but I think he could get. I mean, they don't have a lot of size, so I think he could potentially when Tony Bradley comes in, give Stewart a little rest, he could end up with a little bit more minutes.
Malachi
we have Miller
Flynn
projected for 22 fantasy points, and 26 minutes. I would bet the under on 26 minutes. I just don't trust that's how many he's going to get. That's just maybe I'm being paranoid, but we haven't seen it. They've been
dropped him down to 22.
Oh, there you go. Was it? Did I possibly influence that conversation?
I'm sure you did.
Look at I moved the
when
needle.
He plays 30 minutes, you're going to feel like a real dum-dum.
My epitaph's going to say, "Here lies Dean."
There we go. D'Angelo Russell play off the bench on a pretty limited minutes restriction.
Aha! If you Undertaker got that gift, McLaughlin.
There he is, coming right back.
I mean, I think he's still in play, but he's not a great play. Like pretty limited. What's that mean? I mean,
I don't know.
I love when the quotations.
Is it means at least 15, which will get McLaughlin down to around 33, probably less, considering that they'll run other guys at the point.
The 30 minutes of McLaughlin's fine.
Yeah, it's fine,
Sacramento?
but I don't know if it's like that. I think that's on the higher end because I think Russell will at least eat into 15, 16, 17 minutes, and they'll probably run a few other guys out there at the point. So I don't see him. My guess is probably 28 minutes, 26 minutes, which is fine, not great.
I love when our notifications have the quotation marks around it. Pretty limited. Pretty limited.
This is exactly what he said.
Well, dollar for dollar, right? Dollar for dollar plays. The dude on Detroit is a better play. Malachi Flynn is a better play now, no matter what, basically, with McLaughlin, I think. Those now, if you want to go 3 punts and like full star scrubs, which is something I think you absolutely could do, but there is some potential contention there, and it's hard to sort of figure out what's going to happen with him. But yeah,
well, we are out of time. My cat's walking into the room, and I've got Stevie and Derek Carty in the waiting room. So
all right, tell them we said hello. Say hi to Penny. I don't see Penny, but I want to take your word for it and assume
it
is
probably
Penny on
it probably
screen?
no, she's not anymore. But it probably sounds like a small child.
Grant, where's your dog? Is your dog lurking?
Yeah, it was upstairs.
Yeah. Feel free to like and subscribe, and don't go anywhere, because if you
We'll
guys
be
like
right back.
baseball, yeah. What are you running the 6-pack? What are we running between?
We got a little clip from the DFS pregame show. Some nuggets of info from Blender.
There you go. We referenced him, and all of a sudden he pops up. Stay tuned for Derek Carty and Stevie with baseball. If you guys have premium, stay tuned for Crunch Time. You got basketball and baseball Crunch Time today. It'll be good times for sure. We thank you guys for watching. Do hit the like button, subscribe to our notifications. Thank you for asking us questions. Makes the show much more fun. It's interactive. We enjoy that. Hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. We're up against the clock. Got to go. With that was Devin. That was Grant. I was Dean. This was
Who's your
basketball
co-host?
and a little bit of baseball. We're out of here. Holler.
Thank you.
But I want to show you some premium stuff. So we have 2 things here on RG. With the plate IQ projections, that's the RG projections. So it's not the bat projections that Carty does. So we have a top MLB stacks and stack values. So basically our smash percentage type of thing. And it shows the average projection, the average salary. So here's the smash percentage, the likely of it finishing as the top overall value on the slate as a point per dollar basis. So on today's slate, as of right now, because obviously batting orders change and stuff like that, umpire assignments, who knows, weather changes. But as of right now, it's not going to change that much. As long as the pitchers remain the same, these numbers typically don't change that much. We can see here the Dodgers have the highest smash, obviously. I mean, they have a 7+ implied run total in cores. 28%. They're going to be owned at about currently projected to be slightly under-owned. Are they going to be the top value? No. Likelihood. Likelihood not the top value. But top raw smash percentage, yes. Padres look to be over-owned. 11% smash, 20% owned. So looking at this, here's the White Sox. 9% smash, 3% owned. So now I'm looking there. Higher percent chance of smashing than there will be owned. Right? Seattle may be a little over-owned based on this. And then we get down to like marginal differences. So this is the smash percentage tool. It's for premium members. You click on the link in the description, get $10 off your first month. Then we also have Slate IQ. Okay? As ownership changes, like these numbers will change. Typically, it's not going to be as dramatic, assuming that everyone, is still in the lineups and everything. Same pitchers and everything. So you could look at this at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it's not going to be dramatic. Probably won't be dramatically different. As long as ownership stays consistent. If it's not, then it could go all over the place. But here we have Slate IQ. There's another premium part of Rotogrinders. But I looking everything else, all these other things, stack type leverage and everything, typically stays about the same, like every slate. So I don't even bother looking at them. What the cash line is, whatever, like it's gonna be around the same no matter every slate. Typically by slate size, large slates versus small slates. The main part I'm looking at is the team stacking. So based on the simulations that Jamino has run, his hamsters, they're getting double duty this month. The hamsters are doing basketball and baseball. So you can see the percentage of the time the team is in the win. Basically, this is projected ownership and leverage for 4 or 5 hitter stacks based on results from the 25 most similar slates. So it's simulating it out. So we have here the percentage of the time that this team is in the winning lineup. Dodgers, 9.3%, 8.9% for the Padres. Giants, 6.9%. Seattle, 6.4%. And then you can see the field, the average ownership of the players of the lineup. So you're really looking for teams that are higher probability that'll be under-owned, be less owned. Doesn't mean you can't play the Dodgers. It just means that you need to find leverage. They're negative leverage. We can see here, as of right now, the team with the highest probability, based on our simulations, as of right now, at the ownership levels that it's currently, everything, all the numbers stay the way they are right now. The Angels, 6.2% chance to win. They'll be owned at 4.5%. So that's positive leverage. Arizona, 4% chance to win, 2.2% owned. But you also get down to the bottom, like Tampa Bay, 1.6% chance of being the top stack in the winning lineup, 1.2% owned. So it has positive leverage, but it's also the lowest probability team. So just because it has positive leverage doesn't mean I got those are the only play. I got to play. I look here and I go, I'm going to play Tampa Bay, I'm going to play Arizona, and I'm going to play the Angels, and then not going to play anyone from any other teams. That's you shouldn't do that, right? There's still lower probability, still mixing in higher probabilities into your lineups as well. The projection, if you just played with those three teams, your projections are going to be way too low. Like, oh, I don't want any Dodgers one-offs in Coors. Like, why? Why not? I don't want any Padres. No, why not? Every piece of your lineup doesn't have to be like plus EV individually. If you're going to leave 7,000 on the table and play low and projected players your lineup sucks. Oh, but every individual thing looks done up, but your lineup sucks. You don't need every individual thing to be every part of your lineup has to be leveraged. No, of course not. Why wouldn't I want to play Dodgers with a 7+ run total? You can play 5-man Dodger stack, even though it's chalky. You just have to realize that it's negative leverage, which means you have to find leverage elsewhere. Just have to find more leverage. Not just like, oh, I'll play the Dodgers and just play the second highest owned pitcher or something. Like, that may not be enough. So this is what I use. So that's why with Cincinnati and Milwaukee yesterday, I saw that they were a high enough probability of winning, and they were under-owned. So I'll build some. I mean, on DraftKings, I played 50 lineups in total. On FanDuel, I played 100 or 80 or something. Obviously, all this stuff that we're looking at for Slate IQ is from DraftKings only. The team smash percentage is for all sites. Slate IQ, because we use the results DB to go back and find the 25 most similar slates. So since we have results DB for DraftKings, we could do it with Slate IQ.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Grinderslive, the baseball edition. Yes, it's baseball time, and it's back. And you get to see my ugly mug, but you get to see the beautiful locks of Derek Carty. What's happening, Derek?
Not much. Very excited that baseball's back, getting into our first full week. This is, I think, a very straightforward slate. for cash games at least, probably too straightforward. So I don't love that, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I don't play cash games. So I definitely will give you my thoughts what I'm looking at here for, tournaments. I think it's a really interesting slate to be different on. So good single entry, 3-entry max type of slate, or if you're running 150. Me as a dad, I don't have time to run 150 anymore in baseball. So I'm definitely sticking to single entry and 3-entry max stuff. But we'll get to questions towards the end. We're going to give a general overview of the slate to start off, and then we'll go position by position. Since it's only a 7-game slate, we should have plenty of time to do all of that today. So if there's any questions that you guys have, Devin will be taking the questions, and we'll answer them when we get done. So Derek, just kind of overview of the slate. Like you said, it's a pretty straightforward slate. We have Jacob deGrom, who, if you're not playing him today, you're just trying to be the game theory person, because he is clearly by a large margin the most talented pitcher on this slate.
Yeah, by a lot. And that's because, of the COVID stuff. Like, he was supposed to pitch on Friday when most pitchers, aces went, and they didn't play all weekend. So this is the first game the Mets are playing. And while everyone else is rolling out their, third, fourth, or fifth best pitcher, the Mets are rolling out deGrom. So he's clearly the best on this slate.
Outside of that, like, we have plenty of bats to target on this slate, just in general. We'll talk about position by position when we get going. I guess let's just jump into pitcher. Like, deGrom is so far above everybody else. Like, in cash games, if you're not playing deGrom, you're donating. Yeah, he could get rocked, but like, you're playing Jacob deGrom in cash games today.
You have to. The spot isn't like a can't fail spot. Like, he is getting a park downgrade. He is going into Philly. He's facing what is a really good and really underrated, apparently, Philly offense. But he's Jacob deGrom. He's the best pitcher in baseball, and this slate is just hot garbage. So, yeah, deGrom is your top guy. You're playing him in cash games, at least on DraftKings for sure. Like, there's no reason to consider anybody else.
All right, so we're on the same page. We're playing deGrom, single pitcher sites like FanDuel. We're playing deGrom. Let's talk about other options. We got Dustin May, Trevor Williams, and Adrian Morejon in this over 8K range. Do you have any interest in these three guys?
I didn't realize that Morejon is 8.1K. This guy, he's not even a real starter. He's like a glorified opener. He pitches 2 or 3 innings. Is the plan different for him this year? But yeah, zero interest in him. He's the worst pitcher on the slate, assuming that they keep using him the way they used to. Dustin May, like, I like the talent. Like, I see the upside that everyone sees with his stuff. But the fact is, the guy's strikeout rates have never been as high as you think they would be based on the stuff. And he's a member of the Dodgers, which means that Dave Roberts is going to have a short leash with him the way he does with everybody. And it's his first start of the year, so it could be shorter than normal. He's going into the American League, so he's going to have to face a DH, even though it is an Oakland offense that is not as good as it used to be. A good pitcher's park, but 8.8K for May, I just can't justify it. Maybe in GPPs, it looks like, we don't have his ownership that high. He's like I think 6th or 7th most owned pitcher projected tonight. So for that, like, I'm fine with it in GPPs because he's probably, outside of deGrom, maybe the best pitcher on the slate. And so if that talent just wins out, or if he gets a longer leash than he normally does, or whatever, then maybe you have something there. But from a pure value perspective, it is not there.
I will say one other thing about Dustin May is he gets a little bit of an upgrade because they are going to have the DH tonight. They're in Oakland. So that's a little bit of a bump, but it's still Dave Roberts. You nailed it. Like, 65 pitches, and May could be pitching great and get pulled. So, like, that's nothing crazy. So I think Dustin May, obviously is very, very good against righties. And, when we look at some of the power bats for Oakland, they're obviously right-handed bats. You're a little bit worried about, like, Matt Olson. But I think May's in play just because the slate stinks and we have plenty of value bats on the slate. Trevor Williams, I'm going to pass. Morejon, he in spring training, like, his last outing was 3.2 innings. So they tried to stretch him out. I think he is like the biggest like coin flip on the slate, and what we're projecting him ownership wise. I think in large field tournaments, if you want to roll the dice on him, I don't think he's the craziest play. If he does get that 4 or 5 inning mark, gets that 13 to 15 points, like 13 to 15 points out of your SP2 today, sign me up. Who's gonna get it? I'll play whoever you think is gonna get 13 to 15. So this next range, we got Montas, Anderson, Sheffield. Montas actually coming in at pretty decent ownership. Any interest in these three guys?
I mean, I would have had interest in Montas if people were going to be totally off him, because this isn't a good spot. It's the Dodgers with a DH. Like this is a tough spot for him, but he's one of the more talented guys on the slate. Point per dollar wise, he projects okay on a slate that is just horrible. But if he's going to be the 4th highest owned pitcher, then I don't know about that.
Yeah, and then like Brett Anderson, he's a guy that can go out and get a ton of ground balls, but like if he gives up a few runs, it's not like he's going to come out the next inning and strike out a bunch of people. It's just not in his forte. I think Sheffield's the really interesting tournament play here, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, you were talking before the show, like you want to see what this lineup looks like, whether Tim Anderson's in there. Obviously, they're missing Eloy already. So if this is kind of like a watered down White Sox lineup, I think Sheffield could be interesting. He's another guy kind of like May, where last year his leash was very short. Now, that's not necessarily an organizational thing. That could have been because he was just, a young guy, and this year they're going to, extend him out a little bit more. And so if that's the case, I think in this spot, given the right lineup, I think he's interesting, especially what looks like is going to be fairly low ownership.
All right, best of the rest, Derek. It gets ugly down here, and we're seeing a clear-cut, like really high projected ownership play in this range. Like, talk to me about these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's Carlos Rodon. I was really hoping at the beginning of the day that people were just going to look at themselves and be like, you know what? Rodon is terrible. I don't want to play him, because that's what I expected people to do. And it sounds like that's not what's going to happen. He's going to be chalk alongside DeGrom. And in cash games, that's it. Like, that's your pairing. There's no one else to consider. If you play anybody else, you're just doing it wrong. Like you're just donating, like you said. Rodon is actually a pretty good pitcher. Reports out of spring were that he was looking better than ever. I think I read that he was increasing his spin rate and good stuff like that. The matchup is great against a bad strikeout-prone Seattle Mariners offense. It is a good pitcher's park. It is great pitching weather, some of the best pitching weather of the night. He is incredibly cheap relative to some of these other really bad options on the slate. Like, why do I want to pay $8.3K for Trevor Williams or $7.7K for Brett Anderson or $7.2K for Michael Wacha when I can have Carlos Rodon for $6.7K? And I guess people are noticing that because it sounds like he's going to be chalky. But him and DeGrom are the only 2 pitchers on the slate that project for over 15 points. Like, that's it. That they're the only 2.
In chat, we had some people talking about like Michael Wacha. I think Michael Wacha is interesting. I'm a Red Sox fan. That's no secret. I think the Red Sox lineup stinks. Like, there's a few bats in that lineup that you're obviously scared about. Michael Wacha is a guy that can get some strikeouts. I know, like in cash games, I get what you're saying on Rendon. I think Michael Wacha is another guy that could out inning May and Morjan at like a cheaper price tag.
Yeah, he's a guy who does project to have, assuming that he is pitching well enough, could have a much longer leash than a lot of these other guys tonight. I think that's a tall order. Again, I'm not a big fan of Boston's lineup, but I think there's enough power in that lineup, enough guys that can do damage, especially when you consider that it is in Fenway Park. It's the best hitters park on the slate. So Wacha's probably a little bit too much of a stretch for me, but I do see the upside angle of if he's pitching well, he could be allowed to go deeper than a lot of these other guys.
Yeah, like give me innings, give me opportunity, especially this time of the year. So we're seeing decent ownership for Nick Pivetta, and I don't get this one. Like I get like everybody loved Nick Pivetta a couple years ago, but like he just hasn't done anything to warrant being 32% owned even on a 7-game slate.
Yeah, I think it's really just like people looking at this slate, and you got to own somebody, unless DeGrom and Carlos Rodon are going to be 100% owned. Like, some of these other guys are going to have to get ownership. And so I think people are just going to pick the ones that they, feel less bad about. And I don't think Pivetta is like in an amazing spot. Like, he's in Fenway, the same as Waka is. Tampa Bay at least is an offense that has quite a few strikeouts in the lineup. If he was going to come in low owned, I was going to say Pivetta is a guy that I have interest in no small part just because of the salary. He's 6.9K, where a lot of these other comparably trashy options are 7 or 8 or higher. And so I think salary really just has a lot to do with that, because you have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys that project between 10 and 14 points. Like, they're all the same, they're all bad plays. Pick the cheapest one.
Yes. And don't make that person Matt Moore. We'll see how that. Anything else here? Like, we have Desclafani and
Matt
these guys.
Moore, like Matt Moore is not a great play on a normal slate. You wouldn't play Matt Moore at 6.4K and 3% ownership. Matt Moore probably should be in your GPP pool tonight. He'll probably get lit up. The Mets offense is good and they're getting a park upgrade, but so could anyone tonight. Anyone could get lit up. So I don't mind Matt Moore.
All right, let's talk some bats. I think the catcher position is obviously where we're going to get started here, but I think we're going to see like massive chalk on DraftKings, way higher than projected ownership chalk for Mercedes. Is this a spot where just, definitely in cash games, I think you're playing Mercedes at 3K against the lefty. What are your thoughts here just at catcher in general?
Yeah, the bat's been super on Mercedes this year. Like the first night when he went off, he had the 5 hits. The bat loved him and nobody had him. And then the next night, everybody had him. Now that his price has gone up, I'm going to be curious. I think people are still going to chase it. I think he's a good play. I don't think he's the only play, though. It looks like, have him projected to hit second in the lineup tonight. If that happens, then I definitely have a lot more interest than I would if he's hitting 7th or 8th. If he's hitting 7th or 8th, then I'm not going to play him in cash games. But if he's hitting second, I think you can make the case. Justice Sheffield's a pretty good pitcher. It's not like I like picking on him, but Mercedes is a pretty good hitter by catcher standards. He's got the platoon advantage. My only issue is that I think Omar Narvaez is just as good of a play, if not better, because we're going to talk about it a lot. We have a Wrigley wind game going on tonight. There's about 10-mile-an-hour winds in Wrigley blowing out, and the Brewers are a better offense than people realize. They're facing Trevor Williams, not a good pitcher. Omar Narvaez for 2.9K in the best hitting environment of the night. Even though he's not quite the hitter Mercedes is, I think you can make a case either way, honestly. If you think one is going to be super chalky, just play that guy in cash games. But otherwise, I do think I give a slight edge to Narvaez.
In tournaments, I like Tom Murphy. I think a lot of people are going to be playing Rondon. Tom Murphy's a guy, was it 2019, had a ton of power, especially against left-handed pitching. We really how much do you weigh last year? I think we have to weigh it some, but last year was just shortened season. Everything was really messed up on the baseball side of things. I still want to weigh it and I still want to respect it, but I also want to look at I have 2 chalky catchers that are both cheap that people are going to play. Give me Tom Murphy at no ownership that he could take Rondon deep here.
Yeah, no, I like that quite a bit. Honestly, if Rodon is going to be as chalky as it sounds like, I don't mind a full-on Mariners stack against him. It's not like this guy is infallible. I love him tonight because of the slate, but you're going to get a lot of leverage. The Mariners are all priced really cheaply. And like you said, Rodon is a guy who can get blown up. This is a power park. Murphy for 2.5K, leverage off Rodon, leverage off of these other cheaper catchers in that range. I'm totally fine with that in GPP.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention James McCann with Derek Carty on a show.
That's it, guys. It's in my contract now. Anyone mentions James McCann or lefty mashing, I am allowed to leave the show early. Good night, guys. See you later. Oh my God, James McCann. I can't. I just can't.
You know how
But
much
he
I
is
like
actually
McCann too, but I would much rather play Tom Murphy at $1,200 less.
Yeah, McCann's actually a pretty good play tonight. The Mets are a good play tonight. Big park upgrade, bad lefty and Matt Moore. James McCann is a good play for that reason, not because he's a lefty masher.
Oh, I'm gonna get another lefty masher in here. Okay, so I just want to like mention here, is there any of these like high price catchers that like they're all gonna be potentially low owned outside of maybe Wilson Contreras? What are your thoughts on like the high dollar price catchers?
It's not like I'm going out of my way to one-off one of these guys. If they're on a team that you're stacking, if you decide, okay, I want to stack the White Sox tonight and I want to be different than the Mercedes people, play Grandal. If you're stacking Dodgers, play Smith. But I'm not going out of my way to one-off Christian Vasquez.
All right, moving on to first base. I think it's one of the most interesting positions on this slate because there's options everywhere. There's options at the top, there's options in the middle, and there's options towards the bottom. What are you looking at here for first base?
First base, like you said, there's a lot to like at first base tonight. For me, I think I'm gravitating towards the cheaper end because I think there is more to like at the higher end at other positions. But like if you are spending up, you have Pete Alonso. We just talked about it with McCann. Like this is a big park upgrade for the Mets. Moore is a bad lefty. And so Pete Alonso, especially over on FanDuel, he's better priced than on DraftKings. He's pretty easy to get over there. I think Alonso is awesome. Keston Hiura, who's also second base eligible. I like him a little more over there, but he's in this Wrigley win game. I like him quite a bit. At the low end, Yoshi Tsutsugu. He's a guy that I have a lot of interest in cash games tonight, like going into Fenway, getting that big park upgrade, having the platoon advantage against Pivetta, leading off. He's a guy that I think makes a lot of sense to save money with. Who else do we have tonight? Andrew Vaughn, is still in play. All the attention has kind of moved to Mercedes, but that first day, like they were both really cheap, like they were both appealing punt options, and Vaughn's price has not gone up as much. And it's been 3 days. Like, are we really like reacting that heavily to it? So I still think there's plenty of upside for Vaughn, still plenty of value at his price. Matt Duffy in this win game at 2.2K if you really need to save. Evan White against Rodon, either as a one-off or in your Seattle leverage stacks. Like, I think he's totally fine.
I will have a Seattle leverage stack, just so you guys know. Like, it is happening. Haniger is one of my favorite plays on the slate. Really like Evan White. The only other guy that I want to mention is Jared Walsh. Really, really like him. He's batting second. I don't think you have to use him at first base. I think you can go down to Yoshi or Evan White and just take the cheap power and use Walsh in the outfield. On FanDuel, Jared Walsh is like 2,200. Like he's a conviction play for me today on Lineup HQ for anybody that has premium. I love Jared Walsh, and I love it the fact that like he's batting second against Garcia as well. So I think this is a great spot for him. One of the names that I wanted to mention for tournaments to be way off the board, this guy has like a 1 projected ownership on this slate, is Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer is really good at baseball, and Desclafani is not good at baseball. I think Eric Hosmer is someone that is really, really strong. And even in San Diego stacks, I don't think Hosmer is going to be really popular on this slate.
Yeah, it actually looks like we got the Padres lineup. Jake Cronenworth is leading off for 3.4K against Desclafani. So I think he's pretty interesting also.
Yeah, we'll get into second base here in a second. If you guys haven't already, we do have premium subscriptions for every sport. We also have premium subscriptions for Combo, which will get you everything except for NASCAR. The promo link is going to be over there in chat. So make sure you guys are dropping that, checking that out for $10 off your first month for either Combo or single sports. You can get baseball, which I know, you'll see a lot of stuff that Cheese will be doing and guys like that. I have a lot of premium stuff that I do during the week as well. So make sure you guys are checking that out. And then you can get the bat as well. Like that's another add-on that's really great. If you're doing premium, make sure you get the bat. get the projections, see what Derek's looking at, and pick his brain over there on Discord as well. Let's get into second base. You already mentioned it. Like Jake Cronenworth, 3,400 batting leadoff against Desclafani. Definitely a guy that I'm going to be targeting a bunch on this slate.
Yeah, I think he's really interesting. I hate to say it, but Kike Hernandez at the same price, also really interesting. I think I still might like him a little bit more. But leading off in Fenway against Michael Wacha, it's not a lefty. He's not a lefty. We know he's a lefty masher, so maybe he's not going to be good against Wacha. But Wacha is a pretty extreme reverse splits guy, so that will definitely help Kike. So I like him quite a bit. If you had more money to spend, going up to one of the Wrigley Win guys, I think is really good. Colton Wong is leading off from Milwaukee tonight. Keston Hira is hitting second. I think they're both great plays. I think Brandon Lau in your Rays stacks. I think Rays stacks are really good tonight, especially if Pivetta is going to be the third highest owned guy on the slate. I think Tampa Bay Rays stacks look pretty good against him, so I would definitely be thinking about Lau as well. And then Jeff McNeil in your Mets stacks.
Yeah, Mets. Don't forget about the Mets tonight. I feel like a lot of people are going to forget about the Mets tonight, and that's a really good ballpark upgrade for them. And Matt Moore probably not going to go too deep into this game, even if he is pitching well. So don't forget about the Mets. I think they're super interesting. I don't know, man. I get the Kike Hernandez, but like Jake Cronenworth, I feel like is a great pivot, especially looking at projected ownership with Kike being so chalky compared to Cronenworth. I think that's an excellent pivot. I like Brandon Lau. I like the Rays a lot too. Nick Pivetta is a guy that gives up a lot of freaking fly balls in Fenway. Like, great signing, Boston. Great for DFS, right? Anyway, anything else here from second base? Any interest in maybe like Jed Lowry if he cracks the lineup?
Against Dustin May, probably not. I mean, 3K, he's fine, I guess, but I would rather just go up to Cronenworth, go up to Kike, go up to David Bodie in that Wrigley Win game. I think there's other guys I'd prefer.
Just so you guys know, we do have crunch time coming up after Derek and I talk baseball. Kevin Roth, Meansy, and Tuttle will be talking baseball and basketball at 6:30. So if you do have premium, they'll be breaking down any of the basketball news and baseball lineups that we don't get. We did just get the Seattle lineup. Haniger, France, Seager, White, Moore, Murphy, Fraley, Haggerty, Crawford. So good lineup spot for Tom Murphy. It's setting up as a nice little tournament pivot at catcher there. So talk to me about third base. What are we looking at today?
Yeah, if you can get up to Chris Bryant, that's what you want to do tonight. We have the Wrigley Wind. He has the platoon advantage against Anderson. Small sample size alert, but Bryant is looking a lot better so far this year in terms of everything, his StatCast metrics, like the whole deal, than he has in quite a few years. But I don't want to, read too much into that because small sample sizes being what they are. But the spot, even if you don't think he's improved at all, the spot is still really good where you should try to get up to Bryant. I don't think it is especially difficult to do. He's a guy that I would be trying to prioritize tonight. If you need to save money, there are ways to do it. Luis Urias, on the other side of that win game is 2.7K. I think he's totally fine. JD Davis in that Mets lineup we've talked about, I think is good. Evan Longoria for 3.8 against Morejon, I think he's fine. If you want a complete off the board one-off that nobody's going to own, Alec Boehm at 3K against DeGrom, I don't hate as just a way if you feel like you really need to be different somewhere tonight. I do think there is enough upside at that price.
You had me until you started talking about Alec Boehm against Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, no one's gonna like it, but that's why.
I really like Longoria. I think this is a great spot for him. He's looked good from what I've watched so far, and again, small sample sizes, but I think this is a good spot for him. He's a guy that can hit lefties or righties, and still has a little bit of gas left in the tank. And the other guy that I wanted to just mention is JD Davis. I don't think a lot of people will be on JD Davis. And again, don't forget about the Mets today. JD Davis, another guy that has some raw power. So if you're not paying up for Machado or Rendon, those types of guys, I'm with you on Chris Bryant. I think it's a great spot for him. He's a fly ball guy against a ground ball pitcher. Everything, definitely points to playing some Chris Bryant today.
Yeah, I'm totally in on that.
Shortstop. Like, this is one of the most interesting positions of the day, I think, because I feel like there's no in between. You're either paying up to get like Tatis, Seager, or Xander, or you're saving money and just punting whoever's in the lineup towards the bottom.
Interesting. So I like Tatis, I like Xander, I like Seager. I think that tier right below them is really interesting, maybe even a little more interesting, like Javi Baez, Francisco Lindor, that range. Baez, for all the reasons we like Bryant, he's in the exact same spot. So if I can get up to Baez, he's the guy that I want to get up to. I don't think it's feasible for me to get up to Tatis. And I like Baez more than I like Bogarts or Seager. So he'd be the guy for me. If I need to save a little bit at the high end, it's Lindor because we like the Mets here and this is a really good spot. Or you can punt it with Luis Urias, punt it with, I don't know, Brandon Crawford. There's really not a lot to punt with, actually. Like, this is a spot where I do want to pay up, even if not all the way to Tatis, up to Baez or Lindor.
I think Lindor is going to be very, very popular. And I guess I should have included Baez and Lindor. I don't think you're playing like DD or any of those guys in that like low 4s, high 3 ranges. Like, I think shortstop's a position to pay up for on the slate. I think, when we're looking at it, there's 4 or 5 shortstops that can hit home runs, can score double digits, and you're probably not going to get much from your punts today outside of maybe Urias gets a hold of one on Williams in Wrigley or something along those lines. But like, I'm not playing Crawford or Anderson. Like, if I'm punting, it's Urias. If I'm paying up, I like Lindor, love Seager, like Tatis a lot. But, shortstop's a position I think you want to try to spend up for on the slate.
I agree. With the exception, I think, of Urias. And maybe that's a way to differentiate in GPPs tonight, because the mid and low ranges of shortstop are really, really bad. There's really just nothing to like. So I do think most people will have builds where they're paying up at shortstop. So that would be a way to get different.
Getting different is always fun. Let's talk outfield. Ton of outfield plays today. What are we looking at, Derek?
On the high end, it's Christian Yelich far and away as the top play of the night. He's the best hitter on the Brewers. They're getting that park upgrade. They're getting the Wrigley wind. He's getting the platoon advantage. Trevor Williams. Christian Yelich is a guy that I do want to try to prioritize tonight. I don't think it's especially difficult to get up to him. I want him, and I think I want Avisail Garcia in the same lineup. Both of these guys they just got unlucky last year. They're better hitters than what they were last year. Avisail in particular, I really like him. I still believe in the power in his bat. His StatCast numbers have always been quite good. And so I like both of them quite a bit. Then I think there's ways to go down and save in the mid-range. There's guys like Austin Meadows in Fenway is a good option. You have these guys in the 3K range, like Jackie Bradley Jr. in that same Milwaukee lineup is a good play. Kevin Pillar is leading off for the Mets tonight in Citizens Bank against Matt Moore with the platoon advantage. Kevin Pillar, I think, is probably the best cheap option on the slate outside of Avisail Garcia. So you can pair both of them up, and that gives you the ability, if you want, to spend up for guys like Baez or Tatis or Bryant or Yelich or whoever you want. Andrew Vaughn, I think, is interesting. Qualifies at first, but he's also qualifying in the outfield now. Kevin Kiermaier at 3K in your Rays stacks, I think, is really good. You mentioned Mitch Haniger earlier, especially in your leverage Mariner stacks. Have to have Haniger as part of that. He's even a borderline viable cash option. I like him a little less now that we have Pillar in play, but Haniger is in a good spot. Rodon can give up home runs. Rodon gives up a lot of stolen bases if you get on base against him. So there's a lot of ways that Haniger can score points. Jake Fraley in the same lineup at 2.3K, I think is fine to save money. So there's a lot to like in the outfield tonight.
Yeah, love Haniger. Love the Angels. I don't think we gave the Angels enough love. They're probably my favorite stack on the slate. So really like the Angels in this spot. Outfield's kind of loaded, but I think guys that might kind of slip through the radar that are interesting are the Tampa guys. A Rosarina, I still think he's super talented. I don't think JD Martinez is going to be as popular as we're kind of projecting him. Maybe because he is a little bit cheaper, but I think like even the Mets, like if you're stacking the Mets, like the lefties, Conforto. Now I don't like Nimmo as much as I did because Pilar is batting leadoff. I like Pilar a lot now. And then even guys like Austin Slater, Garcia. Austin Slater's a really good pivot off of Garcia in tournaments. You know, he's another guy that has a ton of upside against the lefty and should bat leadoff. I do worry a little bit about like getting pinch hit for. Marisnik's another guy that you got to kind of worry about getting pinch hit for in that offense. And then you talked about Andrew Vaughn when we were talking about first base, but he's another guy, if you're looking for a cheap outfielder, the talent is there. You know, Andrew Vaughn is going to hit home runs. He's very talented, but he's going to get pinch hit for. Like, as soon as a righty comes out there, Chicago's made it very clear that like they're going to use guys like Billy Hamilton and stuff. And that's the only tilting thing about rostering Vaughn. You're going to need him to do it in his first couple at bats.
Yeah.
Anything else here for outfield? We'll have like 15, 20 minutes to answer questions and stuff like that. I don't think we're missing much. I talked about Jared Walsh earlier. I really like him as an outfielder. Austin Meadows, guys like that are super strong. And yeah, some Wrigley Field.
Yeah, no, I mean, that kind of covers it for me, I think. You know, definitely in GPPs, have your Mariners leverage stack, you know, Mets, Rays, you know, these are the teams I like tonight.
We didn't talk too much about Houston. Any thoughts on Houston against Quintana, or is that just like a spot you just hope kind of stays low scoring?
Yeah, especially on DraftKings, I really don't have much interest in them. The pricing, I guess, is a little better on FanDuel maybe, but still not a team. They're kind of just a team that's there for me. They're in the middle. I don't hate them. I don't love them. I don't think they're going to be so low owned that you like have to get some of them, but maybe they are if they're going to be overlooked, but they're kind of just there.
All right. So if you guys have any questions, throw them in chat and we'll answer them here. We got a ton of time, plenty of time. We'll start with a question that somebody in chat asked earlier, and I think it's a fair question. Why can't we fade Jacob deGrom today? Was the question. And like, Derek, I'll let you take this one. You can have it. Go right at it.
Tell me who you're going to play instead of Jacob deGrom. You know, are you really comfortable going out there with a guy who projects for like 11 or 12 points? Because that's literally everybody else on the slate except for Carlos Rodon. Like deGrom is so much better than everyone else. It really is just getting too cute to play anyone except for him. In cash games, you're straight up horrible at DFS if you don't play him on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you can make a case for Rodon. I don't feel comfortable with it, but you can make a case. But on DraftKings, you have to play deGrom, and even in GPPs, like I don't know, I don't mind being heavier on him. You know, there's just not a lot to like on this slate. That's all it comes down to. deGrom is a straight up ace. He's the best pitcher in baseball. Everyone else that's pitching today is like the other team's, you know, fourth best starter, fifth best starter. So, you know, he's just so much better. It's not a slate where we have deGrom and Scherzer and Luis Castillo. And like, we have these other guys of like, you know, where they're only like a little worse than deGrom. Like everyone else is a lot worse than deGrom.
Yeah, and you kind of talked about it too, because of like all the COVID stuff. Like deGrom was supposed to be with all those other studs, and we're supposed to be getting like pitcher 4 or 5 for the Mets today, and then like this whole slate would be different. But you know, because of everything like that, we have deGrom on this slate. Game theory wise, sure, you could take shots, but like, are you really stacking Philly against Jacob deGrom if you're not playing deGrom? Like, no, there's so many different ways on this slate to be different where even if deGrom gives up 1 or 2 home runs and throws 5 innings, he probably still outscores everybody else just because he's that much better than every other pitcher on the slate. So sure, from a game theory perspective, if you want to throw a couple bucks on a Philly stack and not playing deGrom, sure. But I'm not doing it. And I'm like king of hedge. I hedge more than like pretty much everybody. Like I'll play a pitcher. Like I have Seattle stacks and I have Carlos Rendon on the other teams that I don't have Seattle stacks. Like I had plenty of that tonight. So like, I just don't think this is the spot. The same person that asked that question also asked like thoughts on Waka. I know we talked about him a little bit. Just give me quick thoughts here on Michael Waka.
We said earlier that he maybe will have a longer leash if he's pitching well than some of these younger guys that are going, but the spot is tough. It's Fenway Park. It's the best hitting park on the slate. It's not an especially strikeout prone offense. It's an above average offense. He's Michael Waka. Obviously you can make a case really for anybody tonight. But I think I would rather have, other guys than him.
So White Sox lineup, they say that has come out. I have not gotten an alert yet, so I'll be looking for that. We'll see what that looks like and give thoughts on that. Next question, DK GPP. If the Dodgers are only going to be 5% owned, what about stacking them and fading DeGrom in a single entry or 3-entry max?
Say that one more time. I was looking at the White Sox lineup.
So he's asking, if the Dodgers are only going to be 5% owned, what about stacking the Dodgers and fading DeGrom in a single entry or 3-entry max to hopefully bats outdo the pitching?
I mean, you'll certainly be different doing that. I assume you have to fade DeGrom because of salaries, like the Dodgers are too expensive. Yeah, they're really expensive tonight. Okay. Again, you're going to be different. I wouldn't be, you can build a good lineup that way, but I do think fading DeGrom is getting a little cute tonight.
Yeah, and like the Dodgers obviously can hit 5 home runs in any game against any pitcher in baseball. So I completely understand the question. It's just, I guess if you're playing Rendon and you're not playing DeGrom, like maybe you're ending up with like Sheffield and you're just kind of hoping for 15 to 18 from each of them and your bats go insane. But I don't know. I think I lean more towards playing DeGrom than the Dodgers here.
And there are value plays. Like you might not even have to fade DeGrom, with the Dodgers. If you just play a whole bunch of cheap guys, play, your cheap Mariners or your cheap Rays or whoever, like you can probably make that work.
I tried to do it before. Maybe now that lineups have come out and we have a couple cheap bats, but it's definitely really tough today. Mets are 39-12 on opening day since 1969. Does this count as opening day for them? Yeah, it does. It's first game of the year, right?
Yeah, I guess it does. It's weird how that would be relevant, though, considering it's new ownership, new management, new general management, much different teams than they had 30 years ago. Like it's, I don't know how much stock I'd be putting in that.
Well, they know how much you love large sample sizes, Derek. That's all.
I also like context.
Any love for the Giants? Vegas has them low at 3.6 in his opinion.
Yeah, the bet has them a little over 4, which is a decent difference. I don't love them tonight, in part because Morejon is a guy that we've mentioned in the past, like doesn't usually go more than 2, 3, maybe 4 innings max. So if you're going to get a bunch of bullpen behind him, that's not an ideal spot to attack, especially with a bad offense. I don't think they're especially underpriced. I don't think they have especially high upside. I don't know. I think there's probably better spots.
I will say that somebody in chat earlier asked me what my favorite bet was today. It's the over in this game. It was at 8 when I wrote it up earlier for Scores and Odds. I really like the over 8 of the Giants and Padres game. I think the Padres can hang 8 by themselves in this spot. So I think the Giants are going to score some runs as well. And I think this is a game that goes over 8. I like the fact that you said the bat has the Giants over 4 runs, because that definitely fits in line with the bet that I like there. A couple more questions here. Can you play 2 starting pitchers from the lowest total game in the same lineup on DraftKings?
Yeah, why not? There's no wait from the lowest total game. Okay, so like 2 pitchers on opposite sides of the same game.
Right. It would be DeGrom and Matt Moore. That game has the lowest total currently right now.
Right. First, I think that total's too low. But I don't think, I mean, in GPPs, you're going to limit your win upside a little bit. In cash games, that doesn't matter at all, but you're not playing that more in cash games. Where it works out organically, it's totally fine in cash games sometimes. In GPPs, you limit your upside, and there's no reason to do that. Like, you don't gain anything from it. It's just if you really think the value is really great on both of them. So tonight, I definitely don't think that's the case.
Hera or Cronenworth?
I mean, there's a difference in salary. If you have the salary, get up to Hera for sure.
No Anderson in the White Sox lineup. The lineup's out. I know you were looking at it a second ago. Does that change your thoughts on Sheffield at all when looking at this lineup?
I mean, we mentioned earlier that we thought Sheffield could be, could be an interesting play. I want to see how the bat processes this lineup, but I do think that, there's potentially some upside here for him. Like, he was a real prospect. I think he's fine if he's going to be one of the lower owned guys tonight, because like I said, pitching tonight, it's all the same. So playing the price and ownership game, I think, is the way to go in GPPs if you are fading DeGrom and Rodon. So yeah, if Sheffield's going to be a lower owned guy, go for it. Mercedes is hitting 5th, which is interesting, not 2nd. More RBIs, fewer plate appearances. It'll be interesting to see how that balances. I still think it's close with him and Narvaez.
Yeah, I do think it's super interesting. And the other thing that I thought was interesting about the White Sox lineup was Vaughn and Hamilton are both in the lineup. So that could potentially help with the pinch hit risk of Adam Vaughn here tonight. So we'll see. You never know. The Giants lineup is out as well. Slater bat and leadoff, kind of what we were thinking. Darren Ruff in the lineup, lefty masher, as Derek likes to say. Got another one. Oh, I'm doing good today. You're taking it like a champ, though. You're just smiling. You're not like trying to punch me through the screen or anything. You're taking it like a champ.
It's early in the season. I haven't been worn down by it yet.
I know we have a few more shows this month. I'll definitely work on getting that chisel out to make sure I say lefty master enough. Anything interesting here about the Giants lineup before I get to the next question?
I mean, again, it's not an offense that I have a lot of interest in stacking tonight. I don't like picking on bullpen games, and a lot of times more home games turn into bullpen games.
Yep. I don't think they're the worst lineup today. Like, you could definitely make a cheaper stack. Like, if you are potentially maybe like trying to stack like the Dodgers or something along those lines, you could look at the Giants as a secondary stack, because they are super cheap, and there's plenty of upside in that Giants lineup here today. Let's see. I know we had a couple more questions. Let me pull chat back up. They were talking about some stuff. Any interest in, we kind of touched on them a little bit. Any interest in the Houston stack?
If you want to, I'm not going to tell you they're a bad stack. They're not one of my favorites either, though. Like, they're just fine.
I can answer this question. FanDuel GPP, I have 3,900 left for utility. Should I go Rosarina to complete my 1 through 4 Tampa Bay stack, or someone else? You complete your stack. It's a GPP. Like, you're hoping for the most upside out of your stack. I think that one's, yes, you play a Rosarina, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Derek would even do that in cash games. I know Derek. Maybe not. Cronenworth or McNeil?
I'd probably go Cronenworth at this point, but I like McNeil too.
Montas is cheap. Can we load him up versus the Dodgers? The Dodgers looked iffy in course.
The problem with Montas is that he projects as the 4th highest owned pitcher on the slate. Like, if that's going to be the case, I don't see the need to pick on a team like the Dodgers with a fairly high owned guy. Like, just play someone else who's lower owned and cheaper. And the Dodgers looked iffy in course thing. Like, just throw that out the window, throw that in the garbage. Like, they scored a bunch of runs in course. It's not like they look terrible. And they're still the Dodgers. It's 4 days. Like, the Dodgers are the best offense in baseball by a lot. And they had a DH tonight.
They didn't hit any. They didn't hit a ton of home runs in Coors, Derek. That means they stunk, right? Like, they're the worst team in baseball. They're not. They're not the champs.
Tony Bellinger kind of hit a home run, and then it got taken away. That was a fun experience. But that's kind of a misconception with Coors anyway. Like, Coors is not an amazing home run park. Coors is an amazing run scoring park. It suppresses strikeouts and inflates BABIP more than it inflates home runs. So I'm not concerned that they didn't hit a lot of home runs in Coors over 3 days.
I don't see any more questions in here. Give me your favorite stack, and then we're gonna get out of here and make way for crunch time coming up. Gonna talk basketball and baseball.
I mean, it's probably the Brewers. But really, I think a Mariners stack makes a lot of sense if Rodon's going to be this chalky.
I think the Mariners stack makes a ton of sense as well. I do think like you can, even in like a 3-entry max, play Rondon on a couple teams and then stack against them in another one. I think that it's definitely one of those slates where in a 3-entry max, I'm 100% in on DeGrom. So if I go 2 teams with Rondon or 1 team with him, I'm definitely going to have a stack against him somewhere. And like Evan White, there's plenty of guys, Tom Murphy, Haniger, like plenty of guys that we talked about that make a ton of sense to make the stack work and look really good on paper.
Yeah, for sure.
We did have one more question. DK GPP, do you think Baez, Trout instead of Lindor, Yelich is a good pivot as just one-offs to get off the chalk?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. They're all good plays. Honestly, I like Baez more than Lindor. So, I like Yelich more than Trout, but at the ownership gaps, go for it.
You like somebody more than Trout. Are you feeling okay?
I know it's weird, right? But Wrigley Wind is a very special thing.
I don't think you're feeling okay. We need to get Derek Carty checked. Make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to Rotogrinders, get all the awesome content that's coming out here on YouTube. And we're going to go get Derek a drink or something because he just said he likes somebody more than Mike Trout. And that's not Derek Carty. That's an invitation. So thank you guys for watching. Crunch time coming up next. They're going to talk baseball and basketball. I'll be back on the morning grind talking baseball and basketball tomorrow. And see you guys on Grinders Live for baseball tomorrow night.